Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, July the 7th. I hope everybody had a good weekend, a good July 4th stretch here. Another July the 4th, another day to be very proud of the country, as I always have been. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with our good friend Barry Casselman, known as the Prairie Editor, an old friend of our show. Barry, of course, has been covering politics for quite some time. And I'm sure he's got a few interesting things he wants to say about 6 months of President Trump. That's going to be our topic tonight. It's not technically 6 months, but we're getting pretty close to it. So let me say hello to our friend Barry up in the Twin Cities. Barry, it's always an honor and a pleasure to have you.
Well, always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Barry, as I mentioned, it's 6 months, just about almost 6 months of President Trump. He, I guess, will be six months at the end of July, but it's getting pretty close to that. It's been very active these 6 months. What I wanted to do is have you comment on his leadership skills, how he's doing on domestic issues, and how he's doing on foreign policy, and then we'll talk about the Democrats too as part of our conversation. So, let's begin with leadership, because I think that's so important. How would you rate his leadership skills, Barry?
Well, I think he's brought something almost completely new to the presidency. We're dealing here with a capitalist, a businessman who is extremely able, and he has brought the skills of several decades of being a real estate developer and a promoter and a TV personality. He's brought all those skills to the presidency, something that I can't recall anybody else bringing those skills in this volume to the White House. As a result, he has been amazingly successful. It's not been perfect. He's made a couple mistakes. Several of his plans and executive orders have not been completed. But when you think about how much he has changed the country and its government procedures, it's really without any precedent.
Right.
Certainly any modern precedent.
Right. One thing that he has been able to do, I think better than any president that I can recall, and I can go back to Nixon, let's say. One thing he's been able to do, Barry, is set the narrative. In other words, I remember when George W. Bush had Katrina, and he let the other side set the narrative that he had failed in Katrina, when in fact he had not failed. He had done a lot of things right. But the other side got to set the narrative. And he, that was like a big cloud over George W. Bush during his presidency. And this President Trump doesn't let you do that because he's ahead of everybody. So he will, he goes out and he talks to the press with so much frequency that he's the one setting the narrative, Barry.
Yes. He's a master of PR. He dominates the news. And even though the media is certainly the establishment media is against him, he has them in thrall. He has complete control because they can't help but give him the publicity that he seeks. He does it with a variety of techniques, some of it pretty outrageous or outlandish, which turns off many people, but in fact is well appreciated by, I think, more. And to think about what he accomplished after he lost the election in 2020, and made the probably singular most spectacular political comeback in American history.
Right. One thing that he has done extremely well, I think, and I think this is clearly an example of good leadership. I think he's done very well in his second term, much better than the first term, in selecting people who are helping him carry out his work. I think in the first term, we weren't really sure about all his choices. I mean, there were a lot of questions, had a lot of turnover. It's still early in the second term, but I think he's got some very good people. The Secretary of Treasury is fantastic, I think. Secretary Rubio in State is doing a great job. You know, the Vice President seems to be on the same page as President Trump. So there's something about him that in this, it seems like whether he learned all of this after his first term or whether he's just instinctively this way, I don't know. But he's really selected some good people, Barry, to work with him in this second term, and that's paying off in so many ways, Barry.
Well, in the first term, after he won the upset victory over Hillary Clinton, he really didn't have the background or experience to hire some of the cabinet officers, so he relied on the recommendations of others. And although he picked some big names, a lot of them thought they were smarter than he was. And a lot of them second-guessed him. And they were not loyal to him. And one of the things we know about the presidency is whoever is the president, Republican or Democrat, they have to have around them people who are not only capable, but loyal. And this time, that's what he did.
Yeah.
He chose only those who, in addition to meeting his standards for capability, were extremely loyal.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the results of that in just a short period of time.
That's correct. That's exactly right. We're talking to my good friend, Barry Casselman, the Prairie Editor. Barry publishes the website called the Prairie Editor that I subscribe to. I certainly would recommend that you subscribe and get his frequent articles that he publishes about the world situation. Well, let's talk about the world. That's another area where he's been very consequential. What they like to call foreign policy. How would you rate him in that area? What are some of the things that you believe he's done well?
Well, as I just wrote a piece
Yes.
on the subject, he is the unexpected, incomparable president who has been more successful in a short period of time than anyone I know going back to the 19th century. Many others had successes, but he's had one success after another. Now, he's run into problems because, unlike domestic policy, you can't control all the players. And when you're dealing with Zelensky and Putin and the Ayatollah and Netanyahu and all these figures who are themselves have their own worlds and their own needs and their own standards, you can put all the pressure on, and you can be very successful. And he has been that in the short term. He's arranged one ceasefire. He's on the verge of a second in Gaza. He's been very difficult in Ukraine, but he's making he's pushing it, and then he completely, unexpectedly, intervened in India, Pakistan, and Rwanda and the Congo conflicts and arranged accords. And everyone and their uncle is proposing him for the Nobel Peace Prize. He is the unexpected peace president. Now, I pointed out, none of these arrangements he's made is permanent yet and may not be permanent. But the fact that he was able to use his office and the power and leverage of the United States to bring opposite sides, violently opposite sides, to the peace table, even for a temporary truce, has been pretty amazing. Because when you think about it, his predecessors, both Republican and Democrat, were not able to do even a fraction of it. And he's doing it wherever he turns. Now, you got to be careful. These are not permanent settlements. The world is not in permanent peace. But for the first time in a long time, there are movements afoot to bring an end to some of the most chronic and destructive conflicts in the world.
That's right. That's exact. I mean, I think, for example, the attack on Iran a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was that was genial. I mean, to do that, the way he did it, I thought that was a real stroke of leadership and decision to go in and take out that program, because it, I think, showed not only Iran that he meant business, but I'm sure that it demonstrated to the world the capabilities of the United States. And if you're Putin and if you're the president of China or the leader of North Korea, you got to look at what the U.S. military did and have to be pretty astonished, Barry, with the incredible operation that was to accomplish something like that, sending those planes on the air for 36 hours. I mean, there's no other country in the world that can do that, Barry.
No. And we have to also acknowledge the extraordinary efforts and capabilities of the tiny state of Israel. And how, even though it is surrounded by countries with much more territory and many, many times larger populations, they are the dominant military force in the region, and they have proved it.
That's right. They certainly have, and look at the way before we attacked Iran, Israel had been basically taking down the Israelis. The Iranians, bit by bit. I mean, one of the reasons we were able to successfully do that attack is because Iran, the Iranians don't control their skies anymore, and so we were able to exploit that. Well, let's go to domestic now. He just signed the big beautiful bill, as he likes to call it, on July the 4th. I thought the fact that he requested that it be done by July the 4th, and the fact that it was done by July the 4th, I thought that was pretty significant, Barry. I don't recall anything like that before. I know President Reagan back in 81 said that he wanted to do it as soon as possible, but it took several months to get it done. But for him to get it done in this political atmosphere with very small margins in the House, particularly in the House, I thought that was brilliant, Barry.
Well, we have to give credit to Senator Thune and Congressman Johnson, Speaker Johnson.
Yes.
Who directed, at his request, directed this, but he has a majority for now, probably keep the Senate majority, but the House is open to question. So he needed to do it now. It was a controversial bill because although it accomplished many conservative things, it also raised the deficit, and it had its opponents even within the Republican Party. But I think, as several commentators have observed, the commentators, by the way, who have not always been complimentary to him, have said that as long as the Republican Party takes the trouble to explain the complex bill, and it's a very complex bill, the results will prove positive to the economy and to the Republican Party.
Right. I think the one thing, he's got two things going, I think, in his favor with respect to this bill that he just signed. He's got about 12 months to make things work, meaning in July of 2026, we will see results one way or the other. And so he's got time to make it work. He's got time to push the correct narrative. So I think he's got time to do that. So he's got time to make it work. He also has, Barry, I think a pathetic opposition right now with the Democrats. I mean, the state of the Democrats is just absolutely crazy. I've never seen a political party, maybe you have, but I've never seen a political party that disorganized and disoriented, and that has to be helping President Trump, Barry.
Well, there's no question. I've written a number of pieces about the fact that after the election, we should not be surprised that the trauma of the defeat would have an impact in the short term. However, the Democratic Party, which is doing what it often does in response to their defeat, they are doubling down on their mistakes and the wrong direction. So they're moving more to the radical left, and all they're doing is helping the Republicans.
Right.
So the election, for example, for mayor of New York, I mean, the Republicans are hoping that this guy, this socialist or whatever he is, he may be a small C communist, we don't know. Whatever he is, he's a Marxist. And all he can do is, if he wins, it's even better than if he is, because his proposals can't possibly work in New York or anywhere. And therefore, it will become, as it did already become in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, and Seattle, and other cities where the far left took over, including Minneapolis and St. Paul, where things went downhill, not uphill. And so that's what's happening. The voices on the far left are getting all the attention, and the voices of the moderate liberals are being drowned out. But that's the only way the Democrats can come back. They need a new Bill Clinton. I'm speaking of the good side.
Right. I know. You mean the Clinton, the moderate Clinton, who from the early 90s, who worked with Newt Gingrich.
That's the only way back, I think. And that's not where they're going.
No.
So it looks like not only will they possibly actually lose seats in the Senate, but they may actually do worse in the House.
Yeah.
And now beginning to emerge.
Right. There is a Democrat who's trying to follow the Clinton example. I saw him on television today, and that's Governor Brashear of Kentucky. His problem is that he wouldn't win Kentucky probably if he was the nominee. It's hard for me to believe that he would win Kentucky. Maybe he would, but he's trying to. But maybe the whole Clinton thing was just a one-time, situation. He had Perot in the race. That helped him a lot, obviously. But I mean, I know what you're saying. I think you're exactly right. They have to go in the direction of a more moderate candidate, somebody who can appeal beyond these blue states that they're in. The other problem they have, Barry, is, and this is going to become a bigger issue, I think, in 2032, and that is that the population shift is such that in 2032, the 312 electoral votes that President Trump won in 2024 are going to be worth like 325 just because of the population changes, Barry.
Right. And also, you mentioned Governor Beshear, and he's definitely one of the moderates, but also Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania
Exactly.
passed over in 2024. And the person who's really the front runner right now, who's Governor Newsom of California, is actually, after making a few movements to the center, is now going back to the far left and isolating himself and his state from the rest of the country.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. I would have expected Newsom to go more to the center and try to appeal in that direction. But you're right. He's doubling down. Well, Barry, I want to thank you so much for your time. Anything else you wanted to say or anything else you wanted to add to the points you've already made?
Well, I think the point is, I think a general point that was made in our conversation today, which is that although it's now several months since the election, the Democrats, it looks like they're going to have another defeat in 2026 before they will realize there's no way they can go further to the left and succeed.
Right.
Now, they had an opportunity to do that before then and possibly be successful in 2026. But now, barring the unforeseen, and of course the foreseen can always happen.
Sure.
But barring the unforeseen, it's going to probably take another bad election night in losing House seats they shouldn't have lost, governorships they shouldn't have lost, and Senate seats they shouldn't have lost.
That's right. No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. They haven't learned yet. And you're right. It may take another defeat, 2026, maybe 2028 before. But the question a lot of people are asking, Barry, is can this party actually, can they actually change, or are they going to blow up and become two parties? Because the differences within the Democrat Party are very extreme. And I don't know if these groups can actually come together and nominate a candidate, for example, who can appeal to the center. Right now, I don't see that.
Well, as I said, they don't have that now. But never forget, in the history of American politics, is over 250 years old, and both parties go back and forth in cycles. And although the Republican Party is dominant now, eventually the Democrats will make some kind of a comeback.
Right.
The only question is when, how, and with whom.
That's right. That's exactly right. You're exactly right. We don't know that, but we could probably expect them to as you say, to make a comeback. Barry, thank you so much for your time. As always, it's a great honor and a pleasure to chat with you, to hear your voice and hear your opinions. As I mentioned before, the Prairie Editor, I subscribe to it. It's a great source of analysis and information. I always recommend it to everybody. And thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you.
All right, our good friend Barry Casselman up in the Twin Cities. He is the editor of the Prairie Editor. That is the name of the website. Barry has been around for a long time, has been covering politics. In fact, he once interviewed Joe Biden back in the early 1980s, and in an article that he wrote many years ago, thought that Joe Biden could be a presidential candidate someday. So Barry has a good eye for politics, good ear for politics, and we always enjoy chatting with him. Again, I hope you had a good July 4th weekend. We have a lot of stuff planned for next week, a lot of shows, a lot of activities, and thank you very much for listening, and good night from Dallas, Texas.